Namaste nerds, this is Navanad, Budget Pub Stomper, and today we're going to be talking about a deck that is long overdue. This list has been requested and re-requested, and I keep just not doing it. This is an oldie but a goldie, pun intended. This is Tasigur, the Golden Fang. Tasigur is, he's an old school CDH commander. He used to be like a force to be reckoned with. Still is quite viable. A good commander in CDH, maybe one of the best pure control decks that's been around for any period of time. Like, this is kind of like when I think of, I guess maybe just when I personally think of Sultai control, I think of Tasigur. Hopefully by the end of this video, especially if you build the deck, that'll be the case for you too. When you think of control in budget competitive commander, you're going to think of Tasigur the Golden Fang. So what does our Bannana Man hero do? I mean, what doesn't he do? Tasigur is the shit. So Tasigur is a 6 mana, but not really. He's not 6 mana. He is 6 mana, but he's not 6 mana. 4/5 legendary human shaman with delve. Hence it is 6. It's not 6, but it is. It has so the delve ability allows you to, if you've constructed your deck pretty well and you've got ways to mill cards built into the deck, you can often, you can often get Tasigur out for, sometimes 1 black mana. But delve just means you can exile cards out of your graveyard to reduce his casting cost. So let's say you've got a blood pet. You can sack it for a black mana and then exile the blood pet from your graveyard, and that kind of pays for, it does pay for 2 of Tasigur's cast cost. So I think most of the time you're going to be paying around 3 mana for Tasigur. It depends on when you choose to deploy Tasigur. So it's got that little cool thing, which actually, the neat thing about Tasigur and why this deck and this commander ends up being better than it probably reads is because every little piece of the card is better than that piece individually reads. The delve matters, and we'll get to that. This 2 mana plus 2 Simic, mill 2 cards, then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. That doesn't sound all that good at first read. But the thing to remember, and the way that this is going to come up in play patterns very often, one of your opponents is going to have a win on the stack, or they're going to be threatening to put something in play that is detrimental to the rest of you. In that moment, your 2 other enemies are your friends, and so you will activate Tasigur, and they will put the interaction piece back in your hand that you need to stop the win that's on the stack, or stop the nasty thing from coming down, which does put you in the position of kind of playing table police a little bit, which has some drawbacks. But man, when you can just do it for every important piece, it's like, yeah, you can just sort of play table police. So the deck is going to test your political skill, and if you don't have any political skill, I would say, unless you plan to work on it, maybe this isn't the commander for you. You do need to be able to kind of work the crowd a little bit. And the more manipulative and cunning you are, the more dividends Tasigur is going to pay. It's like, that probably isn't going to come across just reading the card. Trust me, when you're playing the deck, when you see it in play, the guy with the Golden Fang has to be the guy with the silver tongue. Seriously. So he's a value engine. You're going to mill cards into your bin, which we are going to utilize. In fact, Tasigur utilizes it when you cast it the 2nd or 3rd time, which does come up. We'll get to it. You mill 2 cards, then you return a non-land card. So you're drawing cards and milling cards. So it's like a card draw mill engine in the command zone, which is great. And you're also so you're able to use it to keep your hand stocked, and you're also able to use the draw engine to just straight up stop wins as they come out and stop really like deadly pieces from from becoming a threat. Aside from that, this is an infinite mana engine. So not only does it have some cute tricks with the delve, which we'll get to, and not only is it a value engine, but it's also a combo piece, or an outlet, an infinite mana outlet. This is one, like I said, it's been requested and re-requested. So has Grixis in specific Kess, and I was actually planning to do Kess today, But the deck that I built like a week ago is up to $114. And well, this one was up a bit too, but this had been, I hadn't looked at this deck in a long time. So some of the tech that I was on was not only outdated, but was also outdated and inflated. So we got rid of it. That was the Isorev combo. The Isochron Scepter's up to like $14 again, so we cut that happily. The infinite mana outlet, if it's not obvious, like when you look at this, it may not strike you as an infinite mana outlet, because like you're milling 2 cards, but your opponent has to choose one, and so you're only picking up one of those cards. So aren't you going to run out of cards before you've actually picked up all the cards in your deck? Well, not really. Yes and no. You will, but then you can still keep doing it because you don't lose the game for milling your deck when you're out of cards. You lose the game if you would have to draw from an empty library. Milling is not drawing. So you can continue to activate the ability and just basically take all of your opponents will eventually have to give you every card in your graveyard. All right, so let's talk about, normally we lead with the combos. Well, we talked about the combos that we're not using. One of them. We're also not using the Otter. And we're not using Hullbreaker Horror. Now, that's a sad thing because Tasigur with Hullbreaker Horror is fantastic, but we're on a budget and we don't have access to all the zero mana, the mana positive and mana neutral rocks. We really have just Soul Ring. So where the CDH decks will normally use Hullbreaker Horror and or Tide, what's the other one? Tide Spout Tyrant, to play and replay and pick up and bounce and rebounce and tap and do the thing to make infinite mana with Hullbreaker Horror. We're not going to be doing that because we can't expect to just have Soul Ring in our hand every game. But we are going to be able to still use the trick, and the trick I'm talking about here is Tasigur does not actually cost 6 mana. Most of the time you're going to pay 2 or 3 mana, sometimes 1 mana. When you do that, by the way, and you're delving cards out of your graveyard, you are also kind of selecting what cards your opponents will have left to choose to put into your hand. So you can delve away the nonsense so that when you activate this 4 mana ability, it actually is a value engine because you've only left the stuff that you actually want to pick up in your graveyard. So that's another reason why Tasigur being killed or sacrificed or whatever isn't the end of the world, because being able to recast it and again delve away all the stuff you don't want can be pretty useful. So the trick with the delve, you've paid your, say, 2 or 3 mana for your Tasigur. You've had it in play. This is a control deck. You've been doing the control thing. About as close to a hard control deck as you're going to find in Commander. And you've been doing it. And you're just about to run out of gas. You're running out of resources because you're trying to trade 1 for 1 with your opponents, and you've got too many opponents to try to do that. Then your Tasigur comes down and starts to help fill your hand, generate value, and so on. Then eventually, you find, let's say Neoform. It's really Neoform and Eldritch Evolutions these are the 2 big ones. Eldritch Evolution, Neoform, Tasigur. This is a match made in heaven. This is like 2 bananas and on a platter. 2 peas in a pod. So we can play Tasigur for far less than 6 mana, and then we can Neoform Tasigur into a Nezahal. And if you have ever resolved a Nezahal, which usually they do resolve because they can't be countered, which is big in this deck because we are a control deck. We're looking to go late, and when you're looking to go late, having a Nezahal that can't be countered is busted. So when you cast your Neoform, Nezahal, they can counter the Neoform, but once Nezahal is in play, you have no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you draw a card, period. This is an attacks effect. No ifs, ands, or buts. You are drawing a card. And you have the ability to protect the Nezahal by discarding 3 cards. You'll exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It's like the perfect control finisher, and it kind of fills that role in our deck. And a lot of times it feels like we're casting it for 2 mana. And by that time, you're going to have a ton of more... Like, okay, so say we get Tasigur out for 3 mana on turn 3. And we're controlling the board, we're controlling the table, we're stopping wins, we're grinding value. And then on turn 5, we find Neoform. And we sacrifice our Tasigur, we turn it into Nezahal, and now we've got a Nezahal in play. So we're just starting to take over the game. Now, by that time, we've got a lot more cards in our graveyard, and we're going to continue to get more cards in our graveyard with this mix of removal and counter spells and cantrips, and just we're kind of almost, we feel like not a spell slinger deck, but there's a lot of like, impulse and brainstorm, consider, removal spells, counter spells, tutor spells, sacrifice spells. Stuff is going into your bin. So much so, in fact, that Demonic Council is a slam dunk in the deck, even though we're not playing any demons. So yeah, when your Nezahal comes into play, you've sacrificed your Tasigur. So now, if you want to cast your Tasigur again, it's going to cost you 2 more mana. But no, it isn't, because you've got 100. Well, you got a bunch of cards in your graveyard. And so you can just pay the commander tax by exiling cards, specifically the cards that you don't want people to select to put back into your hand. See how that works? Does that make sense? Maybe you have to see it in action. I'm not sure. But it's good. It's good. It's a good interaction. Yeah, so let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Let's talk about how we actually win the game. So we've got few different combos. Lots of different combos actually, but they weave together. They're interconnected. They've got pieces in common. So the hard wins are going to be Jace. This is the lab Jace. This is the Jace that you +1. And if you have an empty library, you win the game. So we just need to empty our library. We can do that by hitting infinite mana. Tasigur's mill ability. We mill our graveyard into our... Nope, that's not what we do. We mill our library into our graveyard, and eventually we will come across this guy. We'll cast it with our infinite mana, and we will plus it and win the game, or we will have a cantrip or 5 or 6 or 7 in our hand. We'll cast our Laboratory Maniac, and we'll win the game. We also have Divining Witch, which is a demonic consultation on a stick. We can also just use Divining Witch with Laboratory Maniac, win the game. So we've got Divining Witch Lab Man, Divining Witch Jace. We've got infinite mana into Jace, infinite mana into Lab Man with a cantrip, which we will have because you're going to have to give us our cantrips back, put them in our hand. And then we've got infinite mana combos. The main two, let's see, is it the only two? Kind of. There's, I don't know how much I want to get into this saw in half shit. We'll say we have 2 infinite mana combos, like literal infinite mana. And they both require Devoted Druid, but we've got a lot of ways to find our Devoted Druid. We've got Dimir Infiltrator, which is a transmute tutor that finds Devoted Druid. We've got Divining Witch, which can be a tutor for Devoted Druid. We've got Buried Alive, because we actually want the Devoted Druid in the graveyard for the Hazel's Brewmaster combo. We've got Final Parting, Demir Machinations. Does that do it? No, guess not. We've got Muddle the Mixture somewhere in here. Right here. Muddle the Mixture, Shred Memory. So we've got ways to get to our Devoted Druid. If we have Devoted Druid on the battlefield, then we can cast Machine God's Effigy. And this is an infinite mana combo. It'll make infinite blue and infinite green mana. Because we will play our Devoted Druid, we'll play our Machine God's Effigy. Machine God's Effigy will be a copy of Devoted Druid, meaning that we can tap it for green mana, and we can put a neg1 counter on it to untap it. Well, artifacts don't care if they have neg1 counters on them, and they don't have haste, or Summoning Sickness. And so as soon as we get Machine God's Effigy in play with a Devoted Druid on the board, doesn't even have to be on our board. It could be somebody else's Devoted Druid. We go infinite mana and we win the game by milling through our deck and picking up all the cards that we mill with our Tasigur, and hard winning with Lab Jace or Lab Man. The other infinite mana combo is Hazel's Brewmaster, which actually turns out to just be a good card. I've been playing this a lot in CDH in one of my decks in Armix Thras. And outside of being a combo piece, this is just a good value piece. So it ETBs, and it's well, I'll just read the card. 4 mana, 3/4, Squirrel, Warlock, Menace, whenever, and that is relevant. Whenever Hazel's Brewmasters enters or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and create a food token. Foods you control have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Hazel's Brewmaster. So, the simple thing is, we get Devoted Druid into the graveyard, oftentimes by milling it into the graveyard with our Tasigur. We cast our Hazel's Brewmaster, and we turn Devoted Druid into a food token. And once again, artifacts don't care about summoning sickness, and they don't care about neg 1 counters. And so we'll be able to make infinite mana and use our mill and basically draw the deck ability of Tasigur to win the game. What else? So back to the plan with casting our Tasigur, kind of cheating it into play, into Hoarding Broodlord. So if we've got Eldritch Evolution, Hoarding Broodlord is an 8 mana card. Tasigur is a 6 mana card. Eldritch Evolution will allow us to turn our Tasigur into Nezahal if that's what the situation calls for. If we don't feel like we can go for a win, then we can get our Nezahal and grind value. But if we're ready to go, we can get our Hoarding Broodlord. Hoarding Broodlord will ETB, and we will get Saw in Half. Saw in Half will Convoke Cast to blow up our dragon. We'll make 2 copies of it. They'll ETB, and they're going to get us either combo piece and mana, or sometimes, I guess the most popular variant of this combo, and there's a lot to this. Like, there's tons of stuff you can learn here. I couldn't possibly go over it all in one little deck tech, but Hoarding Broodlord, Saw in Half, Saw the Broodlord, get Peer into the Abyss under one of the tokens, and then you're going to get Sacrifice under the other. Sacrifice, if you're not familiar, allows you to tap a black mana, or you can Convoke Cast it to sacrifice a creature. You're going to sacrifice one of your Hoarding Broodlord tokens. They do keep their 8 mana CMC, so you'll get 8 black mana, which will allow you to cast whatever combo piece that you tutored, or just kind of worst case, Peer into the Abyss, draw half your deck, find a win con. Later in the game, it's no problem. If you have really any untapped mana, you'll have a couple floating from the combo anyway, because you're going to be able to Convoke Cast the Peer into the Abyss and Convoke Cast the Sacrifice. So you'll end up with half of your deck in hand and 2 black mana floating, plus whatever mana rocks or lands that you just happen to have untapped when you go for that line. So you ought to be able to piece something together at that point. Should be pretty easy. And if not, you'll sculpt a perfect hand, and then you'll put whatever you want into your graveyard, which the deck has a slew of reanimation stuff like Hazel's Brewmaster, and literal Necromancy and Animate Dead, which can also work with the Hoarding Broodlord. And also, like Nezahal, like an Animate Dead on a Nezahal, pretty nasty still. And if you flicker it, when it comes back into play, you don't have to worry about the Animate Dead anymore. So you also have like a 7/7 beat stick that's drawing just a billion cards. Sometimes you can just Nezahal your deck out and then win with one of your 2 hard outlets. There's also a Wheels package. Since we are Sultai and we are going late game, we do have Notion Thief. And since we're playing Notion Thief, we might as well play the rest of the package. So we're on Windfall, which is a wheel effect, Whispering Madness, which is a wheel effect, and we are on Narset, part of our Veils. So this is another kind of quasi A plus B combo, layered combo, where you've got 2 A's and 2 B's. You can drop your Narset and then cast a wheel. Your opponents are all but hellbent, and you have a full grip. Better, you instep, cast Notion Thief, untap and cast one of your wheels, and then your opponents are literally hellbent, and you draw their cards and your own cards, and you can't really reasonably lose the game at that point. Since we're going to be milling things into our graveyard, we've got Regrowth and Ewit. But there's also an Ewit line that's useful. If we've got Devoted Druid in play, this is another thing we can do with our Eldritch Evolution, or our Neoform. So, Devoted Druid in play, Neoform in hand. We can Neoform the Devoted Druid, and we can find our 3 CMC creature. In this case, it's going to be Eternal Witness. For the case of this example, we're going to cast the Eternal Witness, and we're going to use the Eternal Witness to pick up the Neoform. Then we're going to use the Neoform again on the Eternal Witness. And we're going to sacrifice the Eternal Witness to find Hazel's Brewmaster. We've already put Devoted Druid into the graveyard with the Neoform. So Hazel's Brewmaster comes into play, exiles the Devoted Druid, and now we've got a Devoted Nugget. And we win the game with infinite mana. That's basically the deck. That's it. We've got Buried Alive because there's multiple. It's got utility outside of just putting one of our reanimation tokens or reanimation targets into play. Sometimes we're going to want to have our Devoted Druid in the graveyard. Sometimes we're going to want to reanimate our dragon. Sometimes we're going to want to reanimate our Nezahal. Sometimes we're just going to want to stack our graveyard with the exact cards that we want to have put back into our hand. Then we're going to cast our Tasigur and exile everything else that's in the graveyard. Then we're going to activate our Tasigur and force you to give us the card that we put into our graveyard with either the Buried Alive or Final Parting or what's the other one? Unmarked Grave. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a complicated deck, but probably you've come to expect that from my budget builds. I think that's kind of my thing. How are we on time? Oh, let's do some Goldfishing. These decks, these reactive decks, are always so much harder to goldfish, though. We've got a nice mana base. We're a little bit heavy on green mana, but we want it early. We do, we've got the dorks, including like Elves of Deep Shadow, which can make black mana. So it's not the worst thing to be a little bit heavy on green. But we're a little heavier than I think is ideal, which is why there's only one signet that we're not playing. And it's the green-black signet. And you could probably you could do a lot of things with the deck. Hullbreaker Horror would be a fine include, for instance. I might have already said I didn't include the Hullbreaker Horror because I just can't think of any times where I'd actually want to use it. If we're in a spot where we want the Hullbreaker Horror to win the game, we're going to get Hoarding Broodlord. I guess if we had exactly Soul Ring in hand and some kind of way to go off with it, we would have had to build the deck different anyway. But I can't think of any time I'd want it because if we're in grind value mode, like if we're trying to play the control game, we're just going to get our Nezahal. And here I'm primarily referring to reanimation targets, but also Eldritch Evolution and Neoform. So like when we cast our Tasigur for 2 mana, and then the next turn we draw our Eldritch Evolution, we're either going to be in a position to win the game, in which case we're going to go for our Hoarding Broodlord, or we're going to be not in that position, we're going to want to grind, and we're going to get our Nezahal. Kind of the same thing if we have an Animate Dead, or Life Death, or one of our reanimation effects, Buried Alive. We're not ever really going to want the... I don't think we need it. I don't think we need it. But you could play it. It's a fine option. I was talking about the mana base. The mana base is great. The land base. Take a look at it. Like for $3.95, it's pretty fucking jacked, right? I mean, we've got everything you need here. We've got it all. It's all here. Let's do some goldfishing. Oh, I wanted that last hand. Fuckers. All right. This is our first 7. I feel like we should get a first 7 because this isn't our first 7. The first 7 looked like a peach. Go to second 7. Go to our 6. Yeah, we're going to play the 6. Probably we're going to just get rid of the combo piece. That's sort of a backup plan. Draw for turn. Lanor Waste. Elves. Next turn. Play a land. We could bury it alive. Let's see. So I don't know if we want to start thinking about winning the game. We've got we could bury it alive this turn, and then we'll be able to transmute one of these 2 cards into a reanimation effect, get our Hoarding Broodlord, and go off. We could bury it alive just to get a little bit of cost reduction on our Tasigur and start grinding that way. That feels kind of bad. I think let's just bury it alive for a chunker. Oh, I know. We're going to bury it alive for... I've never done it this way. Devoted Druid. Yeah, we're going to get Devoted Druid. Graveyard. What's the other one? Hazel's. Into the graveyard, and do we even want to put the other ones? Let's not put the other ones in. Let's put something in that we're fine to exile. We'll stick an Exotic Orchard in the graveyard in case we decide to play Tasigur out. Alright, now we're going to go to our turn 3. Now note, we could actually cast Tasigur right now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. Got 4 cards in the graveyard. We could exile this one. And this one. And we could get our Tasigur and play right now. And I think some of the time I'd be inclined to do that. But here I think probably we're just going to do transmute that into necromancy. This is very rarely the way that this deck is going to play out, by the way. Going to our turn 4. Alright, and now we've saved the blue to protect our win. This will counter whatever counter spell they try to use. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. We're going to necromancy. Hazel's Brewmaster. Hazel's Brewmaster will ETB. Exile the Devoted Druid and turn it into a food token, which gives us infinite mana. With that infinite mana, we will have had to have tapped differently because we actually need to be able to cast our Tasigur. Not a problem. We would have done Yeah, this would still be able to cast our Muddle the Mixture. That would have still been able to cast our Necromancy. And now we have black mana so we can actually win the game. Okay, so we've got infinite mana, but it's only green, so we need black. Tap our 1 black, use our infinite mana to cast our Tasigur. Start using our infinite green mana to mill all of our cards off of our library into the graveyard, picking them up as our opponents see fit. Eventually draw our entire deck. Use our infinite mana to cast our Laboratory Maniac, and then cast a cantrip. Win the game. GG's. Turn 4 turbo kind of win. That's not how we're normally going to play the game here, but probably that's a cool little... yeah, I think that's actually a good, effective Goldfish, because that shows you some of the things you're usually not going to be doing on turn 4 with the deck. But you know how to cast counterspells. You know how to cast cantrips, and yeah, I think that actually worked out pretty well as a teaching tool, right? Because you know how to play control, and if not, I'm not going to be able to teach you in Goldfishing. In fact, that was a perfect Goldfish, and I think we'll leave it there. That's Tasigur in a nutshell, in a devoted druid nutshell. All right, guys, until next time, East Side till the day I die. Word to your mothers and your brothers and your sisters and your daughters. Is that weird? Word to your daughters? I don't see why. I don't think it's weird. If you think it's weird, you made it weird. I didn't make it weird. And namaste, nerds.